In the US, 80% of people with osteoporosis are women. Why is it that after 50, two people can fall the same way and only one of them breaks a bone? And why is it usually the woman? Nearly 20% of women over 50 have osteoporosis. For men, it's only about 4%. You've heard phrases like bone density loss, weak bones after 50, or are scared of bone loss leading to osteoporosis, shrinking height with age. They sound distant, medical, like someone else's problem. But here's the truth most people don't say clearly. For many women, the shift starts long before the fracture, and most don't even know it. So, if you think these start in late 50s, you're already late. Welcome to Fit Eat Fuel. In this video, I'll explain why women over 50 lose bone faster than men. Let's break it down properly. Bone bank, your highest structural reserve. By your late 20s or early 30s, you reach something called peak bone mass. Think of it as your bones savings account. Your bones are alive. Every single day, your body breaks down old bones and rebuilds new bones. That balance determines your bone density. Here's the first difference between men and women. Men generally build a bigger bone bank. And as men age, their bones tend to widen a bit, which helps keep them strong even as they lose some material on the inside. Women don't get as much of that widening, so the same loss makes the bone weaker, faster. So their bones are wider, structurally thicker. And as we all know, a thicker beam requires more force to break. Women usually build smaller bones, slightly less bone bank. That doesn't matter at 25. It starts to matter at 50. The same percentage loss later in life hits women's smaller structure harder. Most people think estrogen is only about reproduction. It's not. It's one of the strongest protectors of your skeleton. It keeps the bone-breaking cells under control, so breakdown and rebuilding stay balanced. For decades, women have had that protection. Then menopause happens. It's not a gentle fade, it's a hormonal cliff. Estrogen drops sharply over a relatively short window. When that happens, bone breakdown speeds up. The rebuilding side cannot keep up. That rapid phase is called postmenopausal bone loss. You don't feel it. There's no obvious early pain. That's why osteoporosis is often called a silent disease. By the time frequent fractures happen, or a hip fracture in old age changes someone's mobility forever, the thinning has often been happening quietly for years. Now compare that to men. Men's testosterone declines slowly, gradually, over decades. Some of that converts to estrogen inside the body, so their bone protection fades steadily, not suddenly. So women get a sudden hormone crash, plus smaller starting bones. Men get a slow hormone drift, plus bigger, wider bone. Same aging, different skeleton story, and different hormonal timeline. And that's why the same fall doesn't have the same outcome. Have you noticed someone older getting shorter over the years? It happens because inside your bones is something called trabecular bone. It's the spongy, honeycomb-like structure inside your spine and hips. It responds quickly to hormones. When estrogen drops, that internal scaffolding thins faster. That's why spine bone weakness, compression fractures, and shrinking height with age often appear earlier in women. That's often tiny spinal fractures happening quietly. That's not posture, that's structure. And when that internal structure weakens, even a small fall can cause frequent fractures. And here's where many people get even more confused. They blame the wrong problem. They're different. Arthritis is a joint problem. It usually shows up as morning stiffness, swollen fingers, knee pain, or ongoing joint inflammation. It could be osteoarthritis, which is wear and tear of the joints. It could be rheumatoid arthritis. Osteoporosis is different. It's a bone thinning problem. You can have joint pain after 50 and still have decent bone density. You can have no joint pain and still have weak bones after 50, and confusing them delays awareness. Your bone story does not begin at menopause. It begins decades earlier. If you're 35 or 40 and constantly dieting, under-eating protein, low in calcium or vitamin D, avoiding strength training, and living in a constant state of stress, that isn't neutral. It quietly changes how your bones remodel long before menopause ever arrives. When the body doesn't have enough energy, estrogen levels can dip even before menopause. Irregular cycles caused by stress or extreme training reduce the very hormone that protects your skeleton. Calcium and vitamin D deficiencies may not scream for attention, but they slowly weaken the foundation. The signs are subtle enough to ignore. Then pregnancy and breastfeeding enter the picture. During that time, your body will prioritize the baby every single time. Calcium is pulled directly from your skeleton to meet that demand. Most women regain that bone after weaning, especially with good nutrition. But when pregnancies are repeated and nutrition isn't consistent, the reserve may not return completely to where it started. So by the time menopause arrives, the bone bank may already be slightly lower than you think. Then the estrogen drop accelerates the loss. And when you step back and look at the whole timeline, the outcome isn't mysterious. It isn't sudden fragility. It's years of accumulation finally meeting biology. Now, after all that info, you don't need to be scared. It still isn't too late. If you're 35 to 45, this is your advantage window. You are still protecting your reserve. This is not the time to live in chronic calorie deficit or avoid strength training because you're afraid of bulking. If you're 45 to 55, it's your transition window. You're either approaching or entering that hormonal transition. This is when awareness matters most. Consider a bone density test if you have risk factors. If you're 55 to 60 and you've noticed shrinking height with age or fractures from small falls, this is your wake-up call. It's not just bad luck, that's information. And remember this clearly, you cannot feel bone density loss early. Bone pain in elderly people often shows up after structural changes have already occurred. So let's return to the beginning. Two people fall, one breaks a bone. The difference was not luck. It was years of structural reserve, hormonal timing, and mechanical load. Women lose bone faster than men because they start with smaller bones, experience a sudden estrogen drop at menopause, lose hormone-sensitive inner bone more quickly, and often spend decades with less high-load stimulus compared to men. Weak bones after 50 are common. They are not inevitable. Bone is living tissue. It adapts. Understanding why this happens gives you power to change the trajectory. Your future independence is not decided at 75. It's being shaped right now. And through this process of building stronger bones and staying active after 50, our videos will continue to educate and help you solve these problems. So subscribe to Fit Eat Fuel and stay tuned. Thanks for watching the full video. See you in the next one.